Hi everyone, I want to do another IT job today, and this is a job you can get with an information technology degree and many other technical degrees. So this is a UI, UX designer or consultant. I'm just going to try to refer to it as UX because that's how I've always heard it referred to. So what do you do in UX? This may be something you've never heard of. Well, this is a technology-related field, but it also delves into psychology. So if you're the kind of person that finds both of those subjects interesting, I think this might be something you should really heavily consider. Now, someone in UX will generally either provide consultation or even design what we consider to be the user experience, and that is what UX stands for. Unfortunately, the X stands for experience. I didn't make that decision. I don't like it, but you know, whatever. So basically, you are going to look at, we have a product that we want to do this thing. Let's say we have no front end at all right now. We just know we need a thing to do a thing for people. So that is when you would bring in a UX person, that they can actually draw out and graph how that user experience will work from step to step to step. And there are other times where we may already kind of have an interface. Maybe that interface isn't very good and we get complaints about it a lot. Then we would bring in a UX person to figure out what is so bad about this design. Why are people upset with it? And there's several different methods to doing that. And sometimes it will be just something small, that we're working on something and for whatever reason, we are not really feeling so good about the user experience factor. So we will call in someone from UX and say, can you review this? And can you give some suggestions? Now, as a developer, I personally hate when that happens. One, because if I made it, there's one of two reasons I made it the way it is. One, because I like the way it is, or two, because doing something better would have been harder. So it's a lose-lose for me because it's almost like an inspector. Their job is to find something, they're gonna find something. But anyway, the job is important, and if you are, cursing the program you're working with, then it's probably not the UX designer you should be cursing. It's probably the fact that they didn't have enough of that, enough involvement to make it a better user experience. So let's talk a little bit about what you actually do aside from just give a consult. Well, you may draw things up if you're just designing something from scratch, and that means you will use different software suites. A lot of them are Adobe. You'll create these things called wireframes where you almost just draw what something will look like. Another thing that you might do is actually do user acceptance testing, and that means that there are actually several tests. The first one that I'm most familiar with is you will actually sit down with users and follow them as they attempt to navigate an application. And you will count the number of steps that they take to accomplish their task. You'll see how many times they go the wrong way. And this might be something, even if you have no idea what UX is until this video, that you might be familiar with, that you go on a website and you have something that you want to do. So this happens all the time to us today. And sometimes you go down a path trying to find it and you hit a dead end and you go back to the home page. That's something that the UX person is going to try to prevent happening. Anytime that happens in that test, that's counted as taking several steps and ending up right back at step one. Not a good thing, generally. There are some exceptions. So basically, there's more tests too that are a little bit more general, where you will survey users, ask them what did they like about it, what do they not like about it. You will hold sessions, like user acceptance sessions, where you will basically talk with users in groups and ask them how they feel about it, because sometimes having one person just tell you something, they won't tell you as much as if other people are there to agree with them. And when you have people either agreeing or disagreeing with each other, that's super important, because one big factor in UX is that not everyone is the same, and there is no one perfect user experience because everyone is different. So that is a human factor that you have to factor in if you're going to work in this area. And that may be something that is a good thing for you if you are a good people person and you love technology. That might make you more suited for this role. If you hate working with people, this is probably not for you. But people do sort of tend to think of it as a bit more artistic as well. And that is a bit true. A lot of your knowledge will be based around, color scheming and different types of shapes and things like that, that you understand how, people react to those types of things. For instance, if I make a web page that's all red and yellow, that's going to sort of instill a sense of urgency and the need to, move and get things done to people. And that's why McDonald's colors themselves red and yellow, because those colors, they make you want to go fast. And if you're hungry, you see that, you're like, I can go fast. And that's what you do. So you may not really want that for a lot of web pages. Another thing that red can inspire is anger. So there's probably a lot of web pages that you really don't want that. That is one reason you don't see that many web pages with a red or red and yellow color scheme. I mean, tell me the last time you've seen one. So basically, all this knowledge kind of comes together. The design work, where you're drawing up wireframes, you're drawing graphs about how a user will interact with the platform step by step. You're doing consults, where you're helping people to make their user experience better than it was, or possibly just advising before the product even goes live. And then you're also doing testing, where you're trying to figure out with a new user interface, what is good about it, what is bad about it, or with an older one, probably what is bad about it. And all these things kind of come together, and you work, in this area called UX. And again, UX consult, UX designer, sometimes they put UX UI, UI UX. You can find jobs using those keywords. Now, one big thing I always like to answer is, how much technical knowledge do you need to do this? And you do need technical knowledge, obviously. The suite of products that you will use to do sketches and do design work, things like flowcharts, you will need to know how to do flowcharts and mock-ups, drawing up the web page somehow. And there are different software suites available for that. But as far as the specific ones, I know there are some Adobe ones, and there's probably a lot more that having experience in it can help with this. Now, as far as do you need to know how to code? Well, not really, but especially a lot of UX these days is web-based. I'd say almost a huge majority of it is. And so if you have a working knowledge of HTML and CSS, sometimes that is actually a requirement, and it definitely gives you a leg up. Beyond that, if whoever you're working for uses heavily a particular kind of technology and you know that, that is a huge thing too. Now, the reason for that is that you can't really be great at UX if you don't know the limitation of the technology that your developers are working with. If you just go in and you say, well, I think it would be good, or I think people would love it if you could do this crazy thing with a three-dimensional thing that pops out of the screen, something that the technology just can't do. That's not going to work out. Now, beyond that, HTML, CSS with web-based stuff, there's just ways that works. And sometimes developers, especially in an IT role, are not super great at things like CSS. They know enough to get by. But if you have kind of an advanced knowledge of that, you can be a bit of an asset when it comes to that. And I recently had a UX consult actually help me write some CSS. So, actually, I shouldn't say it that way. She wrote the CSS. But basically, the thing is that having that technical knowledge isn't necessarily a prerequisite, but it can really help you to get in. And there are some jobs that will actually require it. Now, beyond that, you need to have skills in this UX area. Some of it may be research. There are people that just do research with UX that are just trying to figure out what is it that people like. And that's important because psychology is complicated and we don't really understand at this moment the very best possible interface. So things like research, things like knowing how to do mock-ups and flowcharts, and the ability to be familiar with the more design-based concepts. These are all things that can help you. So that's what I'm going to say about UI, UX. If I missed anything, please feel free to put it in the comments. Again, this is not what I do for a living. I just work with people who do. If you like this video, please give it a like. And if you really like it, please subscribe and have a good night.